Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to create two parallel arrays and do something with the data in them. So this is a sample for assignment number 4, and I have chosen to use two columns of data, STEM major and the corresponding salary for that major. Okay, and this is my design document. So I will go through that as well. So I'm assuming that to start from the top, this is the same as what's in your assignment. What I'm doing is taking two columns of data, the STEM major and the salary as parallel arrays, and we'll find the highest and the lowest salary. Highest salary, and I'm actually finding the lowest as well. So I'm assuming that the salary are all integers, and of course this major is strings, okay? And all this is taken out of your assignment. Let's take a look at our sample run. I output a welcome message, then I say enter the major name. They type in the major name. I ask them to enter salary, and then I said, do you want to add more? And yes, we add more. And we keep adding more. A couple of error checks that I do. If they enter a letter for the salary, I say not a salary. If they enter a negative number, I say that's invalid. Okay, so we do a couple of checks. And finally, when they say no, we say, okay, this has the highest salary, which is this much, and this has the lowest salary, which is this much. So I output the major name followed by the salary. If you look at my sample planning document, I broke this all down into functions. We have a welcome function, okay? And again, we saw in the previous video, write your functions one at a time. Don't try to write all your functions at the same time. So I have a welcome function. Then I have a function that just reads the major name and returns to the user, or returns to wherever it was called from. Salary input reads salary from the user. Here's where it checks to see if it's a number or a character, and it checks to see if the number is greater than 0. If it's not, then it stays in the function in a loop until a valid number is entered. So that takes care of data validation and data input. Then the add data, which takes that data and adds it to my two lists. That's what that does. So the add data takes two parameters, two of the lists, major list and a salary list. They're the two arrays, right? They're the two parallel arrays. For every major, there's a salary. So it takes two parameters, the two lists. It calls the major input function, gets the name, so it calls the function, reads the name, adds it to the list, calls the salary input function, reads the salary. When a valid salary comes back, adds that to the list, and then asks if they want to add more. So its job is to simply keep adding the stuff to the list. Then we call analyze data, which takes the two lists again, and it loops through it to find the smallest and the largest salary. And while it does that, it also saves the major names from the other array. And at the end of the loop, it prints the information to the screen, right? So these are all my functions. Now, finally, we write the main. Main declares two lists, the major and the salary. It calls the welcome function. It calls the add data function and sends the two lists that are empty right now to add data. Add data adds everything to it. And the thing about lists is when they come in, they get changed. If they are empty, they get changed. They go back. You don't need to return the lists. They go back populated. They go back filled or changed. So you don't need to return them. So when they come back to main, I send them to analyze data. They go to analyze data, and then we go through and we find the highest and the lowest salary. And then, of course, I call main. Okay, so let's take a look at the program. I have written the program. We're just going to walk through it. It's much easier than trying to write the programs. That'll take a lot of your time. So let's start with the functions first. Here's my welcome function. Remember I said write one function at a time. So you write the welcome function. You can start with main. Start with main, declare the two lists. This is how you declare a list. I have declared two empty lists with square brackets, right? Then I call the welcome function. So this is all you should have initially. Of course, write the welcome function and then call main at the bottom. Don't write anything more. Once you get that working and your welcome message displays well, then let's go and you can do it in whichever order you want. Add the major input function. Its job is to simply ask the user to enter major name and put it into major name and return it. Whoever calls it its job is to return a major name. Okay. Then you write the salary input function. For that, I declare a string variable. I put error in it, or you can declare a flag as true or false, whatever works. Major salary, I ask the user to enter a salary. Then I check. I don't check there. I just go into a loop. I say, as long as flag is error, I want to go into the loop. Of course, initially I set flag is to error, so we are going to go into the loop at least one time, right? So the user has entered a salary. We go into the loop. Here's where we check. The try checks to see if it can try and convert this. So I'm going to try and convert the number that they enter to an int and put it into major salary. If they enter a valid number, it will convert it. It'll be fine. None of this stuff will get executed. Okay, it'll come here. Actually, it'll come here to this else, and it will check, is that number less than or equal to 0? If it's not, then it's going to return it. If it is less than or equal to 0, it's going to set it to error. And remember, we are in a loop, so it's going to go back. Now, if they enter a character, this is going to fail, which means it's going to come to the except. When it comes to the except, we set the flag to error again, which is kind of redundant because it's already set there up here. But that's okay. You set it to error again. And then you output, tell them, hey, it's invalid salary, enter salary again, and we read and put it into this variable again. Okay, because remember, we did that outside the loop. So when there's an error, we must read again from the user. And a slightly different error message, right? So it never comes here after that. Right here, after the error, it skips all of the stuff and it goes back to the while loop. So flag is still an error, so this is true. So it comes in here, we've already read something. It's going to try and do this again. So at that time, if the user enters something valid, it's going to skip the except. It's going to come to the else. It's going to check, is it less than 0 or greater than 0? If it is greater than 0, then it says, oh, okay, I don't have to error out. I can come here and return. So it keeps doing that over and over again. When there's a good number, it returns to whoever calls it. Okay. So now here's my add data function. Add data takes the two lists. Okay. I set a variable option to yes, so I can use that to see if the user wants to keep adding more. So while this option is not equal to no, right? Initially, I want to go into the loop. As long as it's not equal to no, that means if they enter yes, then I want to go into the loop. So that's what this is saying. If it's not equal to no, then you go in, you call major input. We already have written major input. Its job is to ask the user to enter major name, read it into major name, and return it. When it returns it, it's going to go into this variable major name. I just print it to see what it shows up. I can comment that out. When you're all done, everything is working, you can comment it out. Then I call salary input. That's the function that we just saw. It will read a good salary. When it reads a good salary, it'll return it. We put it into major salary. Then we use the append function, append the name and the salary to their respective lists. And then you ask, do you want to add more? If the user enters yes, it's not no, it's yes. So it's going to go into the loop and do it again. So it keeps doing that until the user enters n. When the user enters n, it's going to come out of there. So that finishes that function. Then, so you can try just that function, try one function at a time. So, of course, in order for this to work, you have to have both of these, but I would try major name first. Write this function, try major name, then write the salary function, then try this, right? So, and then even before you analyze data, once you have this data in your list, you can just print the list. So call main, and in main, you can simply say, all you have to do is say print major, and that'll just print the list of items. So that'll kind of give you an idea of what's there in your list and if your list is actually valid. Okay, and then the last function is analyze data to go through and find the highest salary and the lowest salary with their names. So we get the two lists in as parameters again. We set two variables, max to the first salary square bracket 0. Remember from your slides, that's the first salary. And I also set the major max name to major of 0. So now the name gets set to the first name. Okay. Then minimum gets set to the first value. The minimum name gets set to the first value as well. because it'll change, right? As you go through, the highest salary is not going to be the same as the lowest salary. So highest name is not going to be the same as the lowest name. So we need two different variables for that. For X in range, that means I'm going to go through all the items in the list for X in range. And what's my range? Length of salary. This will return the number of items in the list, and that's what goes into the range function. Okay, so if I entered 4 majors and 4 salaries, then this would say 4. So we'll go through 4 of them. Salary of X, X starts at 0. So if there are 4 items, we go 0, 1, 2, 3. Again, this print statement is just for me to see what I get. You can comment it out when you're all done. I check if max, which is the first item, is less than salary of X. It starts at 0, which is okay. It compares to itself, and it won't do anything the first time because you're comparing it to itself. But the next time, when it becomes 1, if the salary is higher than max, then this becomes the new max. Max equals salary of X. Major max name equals that value of X, which is 1, right? The corresponding name goes into major max name. Then likewise, you check if the minimum salary, if min is greater than that salary, then you put that value into min, and the name goes into major min name. So it goes through, this says go through every single item like that. If you find a salary higher than this, put it in there and take the corresponding name and put it into major max name. If you find a salary lower than this, then put that into the corresponding values. And when you're out here, when it's all done with the loop, we'll be out here. Then we say, okay, this is the highest salary. I print max, and I print the major max name and the major min name, right? Okay, when all that's done, we go back here to main, and we output the welcome message. We call add data. You call analyze data. That's all you have to do. So the main really shouldn't have much other than a bunch of function calls, right? Which is what we have. And then finally, we call main at the bottom. So if you run this, let's do some tests. Enter major name. So let's say I enter nuclear engineering, salary 100,000. That was not 100,000. Do you want to add more? Yes. Chemical engineering. Okay, maybe 100,000 actually this time. One more zero. Okay, yes, I want to add more. Maybe, how about comp science? So maybe I make a mistake. It says invalid salary. Enter major salary. Let's enter 200,000. I say, no, I don't want to add more. So it prints all the salaries. This again, you can take out the print statement. It says higher salary is 200,000, majors comp science. Low salary is 10,000, and the majors nuclear engineering, right? So go through this, try to figure out how you can use this to help you with your assignment 4. You can use parts of it and come up with your own idea and try to do it.